Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Pope Leo XIV agrees on the need for peaceful dialogue. He emphasizes that no lasting solution can be imposed from the outside. Lebanon's future must be shaped by Lebanese voices. His upcoming visit, he hopes, will inspire reflection and unity, not serve as an endorsement of any party. The Church seeks to encourage reconciliation and dignity, a reminder that identity is not solely political, but human and spiritual. As Salam rises to leave, the exchange remains warm. The men shake hands, offering words of continued cooperation. The Pope's staff and Vatican officials observe quietly, taking note of the significance of the moment, a gesture, a conversation, a shared acknowledgement of difficulty and the possibility of hope. These moments matter. Diplomacy is often measured not only in agreements or declarations, but in presence and recognition, simply showing up, engaging respectfully, and signaling that a nation is not isolated can shape political narrative and public feeling. Salam exits the room, stepping back into the corridors of the Vatican. Outside, journalists, diplomats, and observers await statements, reactions, interpretations. But inside the room, something quieter and more human took place. Two men acknowledging the suffering of a nation and committing in their own ways to help. The Pope's visit in November is already being prepared carefully. Security arrangements, meetings with religious and civil leaders, public addresses designed to reach not only Lebanon's Christians, but all Lebanese communities. The Vatican intends for the visit to send a message. Lebanon matters, its people matter, its history, culture, and coexistence model have meaning far beyond its borders. For many Lebanese citizens, this message may offer a moment of relief, a reminder that even in crisis, they are seen and remembered. And sometimes in moments of deep uncertainty, that reminder can be the beginning of renewal.
Welcome back to War Monday. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Yes, there is a war on Christians, and it's not just in the Middle East, folks, but that is a good start for the new Pope to lay down the gauntlet to protect all Christians by going to Lebanon and Turkey. The Lebanese Prime Minister, Nawaf Salam, met with Pope Leo at the Vatican, as you saw in the video, because Lebanon's got a deepening economic and political crisis. And their discussion focused on national stability, social hardship, and the Pope's planned visit to Lebanon. It's going to happen next week, I think, here at the end of this month. The Pope will also visit Turkey on this trip and celebrate the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea. Lebanon is impacted greatly also by the Syrian civil war because approximately 2 million Muslim refugees came there from Syria's civil war. But the war on Christians is much wider than just the Middle East. Even President Trump has threatened to use military force in Nigeria to stop the Islamist army of Boko Haram from committing genocide on its Christian population. But there could be another answer, funded by the Vatican, and we'll talk about that in the last segment of the show. Well, CDM Press President and CEO L. Todd Wood is my guest today, and he's been reporting on the situation in Lebanon on the ground for many months. He's a former Special Operations Air Force helicopter pilot. As CEO of CDM Press, he's on a mission to report the truth, no matter how much it hurts. As America's free press should be, to protect our way of life. Todd, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Rob, thanks for having me on, man. Really love the show. Thank you.
Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on. It's, I have to ask you about this before I jump into the Pope going to Lebanon, though. And that is, did you see the bishops' video, the Catholic bishops in America's video about how America should be footing the bill for all these illegals around the world?
I didn't see the video, but I didn't really want to. But I saw Tom Homan's response, and I think that was appropriate. The Catholic Church is just wrong. So no, I didn't see it. But should I have seen it? Was it worth watching?
No, it wasn't worth watching. But Tom Homan's response was, "You got the right piece of it." So, but I just want to highlight that because as we talk about the Pope and any church, there are two sides to every coin, folks. And the Catholic bishops and the Catholics, the church itself has been getting over $500 million a year by encouraging and assisting illegals to come into our country over these many, many years of the Biden and even the Obama administrations and some of the Trump administration the last time before they figured out what was going on with it. And that's what they're really talking about is we're losing our federal tax dollar funding, which you and I provide.
Yeah, no kidding. I think what's come out of all this, and I don't know if you have more of the monologue to talk about, but I want to talk about how the churches have become really, and not just the Catholics or the Protestants, but a lot of the church clergy, et cetera, have become nefarious actors in all this, and we can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been, last time we interviewed you, you were on the ground in Lebanon. You had been sequestered up in a monastery to keep you safe and everything. And we talked a lot about the Islam Christian demographic split in Lebanon now versus what it was in the past and those kind of things. But so the Pope's first truly overseas visit is to Lebanon and Turkey as part of his first visit. And I think they're the first two stops, if I remember correctly. But it's very significant. Why is it significant that he's coming to Lebanon besides the mush that I read from the press release, I think, in the monologue for the Prime Minister of Lebanon? The Pope is the leader of the Catholic Church. He ought to be talking Christian stuff, right?
He ought to be. And it's a Maronite Catholic country. I mean, they're in full communion with the Vatican as far as the denomination, the church is concerned. But I'm a 60-year-old guy. I've been around the world like you. We've done a lot of things in our lives. I was ignorant as to what is really Lebanon is about until a year ago. And it blows me away. It's kind of like, in 2020 when we got our eyes open to a lot of other things that have been going on. But that is the seat of Christianity. I mean, Jesus Christ walked there. I may have told you last time, I don't know if I played it, but I sat down with a young girl who was not a refugee. She was fleeing Syria because she was a Christian, and a lot of her family and her village were killed. And she was in hiding in Lebanon, in Beirut. And I met with her, and she made me record her saying the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic. And there's only one village left, Malawa, I think it's called, in Syria that actually still speaks Aramaic, which is the language of Christ. Really just, earth-shattering stuff over there. That is the only Christian country in the Middle East. And, it's apostolic. The apostles came up and spread Christianity through Lebanon into Syria, into Turkey, and that's why in Armenia, and that's why the Pope is going to those areas. And you go there and, I saw the spear that stuck Christ in the side in the first Christian cathedral. I saw pieces of the cross. Just really the real deal Holyfield kind of stuff there. And they don't. And I didn't know all of this. And I'm glad the Pope is talking about Lebanon because I've been saying we need because the Trump administration is not, unfortunately, or they are, but they're only talking about Hezbollah in the south, which is, what Israel wants. I mean, fine, Israel needs security, but that whole Christian community has been attacked incessantly for 50 years, and it needs to stop, and we can stop it with just the bully pulpit. We don't need to put troops on the ground. Just start talking about the issues the Christians care about in Lebanon. That would be a huge, huge, huge difference, and it's not happening. In fact, Tom Barrack, the Trump envoy to the Middle East, to Lebanon, who's Lebanese, said basically, we're going to give Lebanon to the Sunnis. I mean, what?
What?
So, yeah. So I don't know what's going on in Trumpville, but we're trying to make it really clear that you need to start talking about the Christian issues in the Middle East.
Oh, absolutely. Just like he weighed in on the Nigeria thing, which we'll talk to. I got to devote a whole segment at the end of the show to that, just because of how Eric Prince laid it out when I discovered
Sure.
it. But yeah. So the Pope, is he really coming to talk about, keeping Christians together and unifying and stop persecuting them, or is he coming to do some interfaith, weak, squishy, glad handing? That's my question.
Well, I don't know this new Pope. The old Pope would have had, would have had the Quran read in the cathedrals. So I don't. I've heard good and bad about this Pope. I don't know enough. I'm not Catholic to make a decision. Although I spent a lot of time with Catholics and Orthodox in the Middle East and in South Central Asia, the Turkey, Armenia, Caucasus area recently, and I know a lot about their plight. But I don't know. I've heard some good stuff about this Pope. I hope that the good stuff I heard, that he's actually trying to do the right thing, is true. But I really don't know enough to make a judgment on him, to be honest. But the Catholic Church itself, historically, in the last 100 years, has not been fighting for Christians. They've been fighting for something else. Call it globalism. Call it, at the end of the day, it's just the other team, and that's what I don't like. And we need to regain our churches. And it's going to start with the local level, with people not accepting the garbage that's been preached from the pulpits in a lot of the Protestant churches and the Catholic churches over the last, several decades.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, it's important to know. You're not talking about just the Catholics. You're talking about Protestants and Catholics. We're a couple of Protestants, I guess, talking about the Pope and everything. But even those of us that aren't officially Catholics still recognize the Pope as one of the heads of the biggest churches, Christian churches in the world, and probably the most organized, the best funded, and he's a head of state because of that and everything. So I think most, I'm not going to say most Christians. This Christian recognizes that, and that it's important when he goes out and does something and leads his church bureaucracy to take up for Christians around the world. We could see a reduction of these persecutions, but that unfortunately is not what's happening. What about these nefarious actors you mentioned when we first came out of the monologue? They're talking. Well,
obviously the Catholic Church has been focused on immigration, as you said, bringing in immigrants, the globalist agenda, essentially destroying Western civilization, which is built by Christianity, which gave the world the most hope, I would say, for a human form of government where people actually have a voice. That is what's being destroyed, and Christianity is behind that, and that's why they're going after the Easter worshipers, if you will, as Hillary called us. But I'll give you an example. For instance, in Armenia, the Pashinyan, the prime minister, was just in the White House signing a peace deal with Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan. They've been fighting wars. Pashinyan, the Armenian PM, is a globalist. He allowed the Muslims to take over Nagorno-Karabakh, which is the ancient Christian kingdom between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And he signed this peace deal, and he's targeting the Apostolic Church in Armenia. I mean, and I'm talking targeting. I'm talking wanting to arrest the Catholicos. He's trying to, because that's like the Pope of this Armenian Apostolic Church. He's put 24 priests in jail, had them arrested. He's jailed the biggest, what do you call it when somebody gives a lot of money? Philanthropist, who's actually Armenian, but he was living in Moscow, but he came to Armenia and tried to support the church, gave a lot of money, and they arrested him. He's still in jail. There are prisoners still from the war in Baku, in the capital of Azerbaijan. Trump mentioned it in the White House. They're rotting in jail. They were leaders of the Christian movement in Artsakh, the Nagorno area. And so all of this is going on. They're trying to seize the capital of the church, which is Etchmiadzin, which is where the first Christian cathedral was built. It's still there. I saw it. The spear that stuck Christ in the side is there. And this government is trying to destroy Christianity, just like they're doing in Ukraine and Romania, by the way, and other places. And this is where Lebanon comes in. We can talk about it's the same thing in Lebanon. But they are going after this church. And guess what? This week, Franklin Graham and another pastor, Tinney, I forget his first name, they have a prayer breakfast in Armenia with the prime minister, and everything's kumbaya and everything's great. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? I wrote about it. I mean, like, dude, you're shilling for people who are trying to destroy the faith. What the hell are you doing? I mean, do the right thing. You may not get invited to the next event with the prime minister, but stand up and be counted, you know? I mean, that's one
really
example.
weird. Let's continue this on the backside of this break after the video. The video is going to talk about the Pope going to Turkey too, but and I want to jump into that and talk about the implications of that, wider implications of that. But this discussion is very important. Why would Franklin Graham, who I've met and I consider a good, solid guy, fall for something like that? What are we missing? That's the question. We'll be right back with
what are they missing?
Yeah.
Do you appreciate all the free programming we produce here at Worldview Tube? Well, if you do, we need your partnership now. If you're already supporting us, thank you. If you're not, would you please consider doing so? We have to have a big November and December end of the year giving. Please go here right now to this website, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You can give through credit card. You can give through PayPal. You'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. You'll also find our phone number. Simply use that phone number by leaving a voicemail for Melissa or texting her, and my wife will get back with you and help you make your contribution over the phone. We send out tax receipts with our EIN number, well, the first week of February of each year. We, again, have to have a very big November and December as we get ready for pushing out more Christian worldview programming for 2026. So thank you for going now to worldviewfoundation.com. That's worldviewfoundation.com.
Right, you cannot make this up. The first American Pope is visiting Turkey on Thanksgiving this year. Like, I'm not joking. Can somebody at least tell me that he chuckled when his secretary gave him this news? So this is exciting because it's the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea, which is where the church proclaimed and defended the fact that Jesus is fully God, divine, right? And so on this Thanksgiving coming up, let's remember the roots of our faith as Pope Leo goes on a trip back to a place that was so instrumental in forming what we believe. So let's keep him in our prayers as he prepares for this first trip.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. And yes, folks, there is a war on Christians and Christianity all around this world. And it's very important for our team, not just Catholics or the Catholic Pope, but our team, Christians. We're all the same team. It's very important for our team to be as cohesive as possible and operate as one, as much as our human nature can allow it, and if our faith in Jesus Christ, the Son of God, is enough, maybe even overcome human nature, so that we can act as one to put an end to this stuff. But unfortunately, we don't see that happening. And my guest today is Todd Wood, the CEO of CDM Press, who has been reporting from Lebanon and Armenia and around this part of the world for many months now about what's going on with Christianity. And Todd, you know, you were talking before the break about Franklin Graham and this prayer breakfast and everything. Now, is it a prayer breakfast? Were they attempting to do it? I've gone to the national one once before and actually met King Hassan of not Hassan, but the King of Jordan. While I was there, he was a speaker, one of the speakers and everything. Is it one of those where you're trying to bring people together for a common cause and maybe witness the gospel, or was something else going on? You mentioned that the prime minister is like trying to destroy Christianity.
Well, the purpose that is stated is what you're saying. It's to bring people together and spread the gospel and proclaim Christianity and pray for the future. But really, what it was about was to give cover to the globalist prime minister who's destroying the Christian state of Armenia. Let me give you an example. So Mount Ararat was taken from the Armenians by Turkey. It's the center of their view of the world. They believe, the ancient Armenian kingdom was there. It's where Noah's Ark was found, it allegedly. And I was just there, and it is really almost holy to the Armenian Christian faith. And so the prime minister, Pashinyan, takes Ararat off this national symbol of Armenia and puts another mountain across the country on and said, we got to be about this mountain now and not Mount Ararat. I mean, why would you do that? I mean, you're just trying to destroy the history, and that's what globalists do. It's like tearing down the Confederate statues, right? I mean, it's to get rid of any history so you can rebuild it in whatever image you want. And he's trying to do the same thing the Ukrainians have done, where you destroy the church, you take over the facilities, you put the priests in jail, and you build your own church. Because guess what? The Christians they believe in a higher power. They don't believe in the state. So if you want a globalist, evil, satanic state, you get rid of anything in the way, and that's Christianity, because you're not going to be able to control these people and their belief system. And the communists in China did the same thing. The Soviets did the same thing. So they're doing it in Armenia, the first Christian country ever. And we can talk about Lebanon. There's been a multi-decade attack on Lebanon in many ways. The most recent, and you mentioned the 2 million Christians that came in, or not Christians, Sunni refugees from Syria.
Yeah.
And they're being paid by the UN and other people to be there. And the Lebanese are like, okay, the war's over. You got a new Sunni president in Syria. He just was in the White House. Go back to your country. But no, they want to keep them there to dilute the Christian demographics and destroy what is left of Christianity in Lebanon, which is 35-40% of the country right now.
And is it accurate to say that at one point the Sunni Muslims were more friendly to Western culture, especially the United States, and Christianity? I don't know about Christianity, but to the United States and our culture and our policies than the Shia version of Islamism, which is, emanates out of Iran, those kind of areas. Is that right?
Well, Lebanon is a melting pot. It's the perfect example of diversity that doesn't work. That's what my guys are telling me. If you want an example of how this crap doesn't work, look at us. And so he's like, we got all these different people trying to live together and run a government together, and it just doesn't work. That's not completely correct, because I can tell you that the Shia were more helpful to the Christians in Lebanon specifically than the Sunni have been. Like the first thing Golani did in Syria when he took power from Assad was go down and kill a few thousand Christians. So and the Shia were helping to protect them. So
the purpose behind my question was trying to peel the layer back a little bit to see the question of, well, why would we as a policy, the United States as a policy, be wanting to keep 2 million Sunni refugees in Lebanon when the guy in charge of Syria now is a friend, supposedly, and why not encourage them to go home?
I agree, and we've been putting as much pressure as we can as a global network, but we're not huge, but we're impactful. We have influence. People listen to us. People read us, and I think the issue has to do with money, transactional politics. You look at Turkey, who's Sunni, who's very powerful in this region now. You look at the Gulf states, who are all Sunni. And you look at Iran, which is Shia, and they would have, and I mentioned this, that their priority of the Trump administration is to prevent a Shia army from reestablishing itself in Lebanon after the Israelis destroyed them, essentially. I mean, they're still powerful, but they're not what they were. So that is their priority, and they're not talking about the Christians. And this is the same thing that's going on over and over in Lebanon. In 1991, you and I were around during the Gulf War I. H.W. Bush went to Assad in Syria and said, if you join my coalition, you can have your way with the Christians in Lebanon. And he did. He joined the coalition. Bush didn't need him to defeat Saddam. But guess what? Assad goes in and 15-year war in Lebanon and destroys a lot of the Christian community. And that was done with the blessing of the United States. And it's happening again, in my opinion, and we can't let it happen. We have to be vocal about it. This Christianity needs, I met with the head of the Free Patriotic Movement in his home in Beirut, who's one of the largest Christian parties, and he said, this is the home of Christian, that we need to grow, keep our roots here. If we leave, we're not, it will be a historic loss for humanity. And so that is what they're trying to fight for.
Yeah, so what is limiting him, the prime minister, from relocating those 2 million Syrian refugees out of Lebanon back to Syria? What's preventing him from doing that? Anything?
You mean the Syrian president or the Lebanese?
The Lebanese prime minister. I mean,
well, they would love to. I mean, it's a presidency, but he's beholden to the Trump administration, to the United States right now, and their focus is not on that. I mean, they're allowing, and Barrack said it. Tom Barrack said, who's Lebanese, but he's the Trump envoy, said, you know what, Christians are, they're never going to be really powerful here, so why don't we just let the Sunnis run it? I'm paraphrasing. But we have the article up on his site. And I was like, what are you talking about, dude? So that really blew me away, and it gave a good window into their mindset. They just want the Hezbollah issue dealt with. That's their primary concern. And I'm saying, you got 2 million Maronite Catholics there who have been there for centuries. They've survived the Crusades. They've survived the genocide in Armenia. A lot of them are from that genocide, families that came down in the desert. And you got to take care of these people, man. You got to support this Christian way of life. And the churches are beautiful. I've been in them. I'm just screaming as loud as I can to get this message out. Yeah.
So the head of Lebanon, the head of state in Lebanon, if he's too beholden to the United States, then what other recourse does the Christian party you mentioned have from their perspective on the ground? Are they able to arm themselves to protect their own communities, et cetera?
Well, they've done that in the past, and I heard talk of doing that again. And you don't want a civil war there. Civil wars are not good for anybody. They kill a lot of people. If you go back to where all this started in the early 70s, you look at the old pictures. Lebanon was beautiful. It was the Paris of the Middle East. It was 70% Christian, gorgeous, free, open, prosperous. And guess what happened? The UN or whoever brought in 500,000 Palestinians out of the Levant, out of Israel, and put them there. And then the PLO got started, and then the Palestinians attacked the Christians, and they had a huge civil war, and the Christians lost because we weren't supporting them. The Palestinian PLO was getting support from Moscow, from all over the communist central at the time, the other bloc, and we just let it happen. And I've talked to these guys that were in that war, and they're like, we tried our best, and we didn't win, and we lost a lot of power. And then this weird explosion happened in the Christian port of Beirut, right in the middle of the Christian sector. A lot of people believe that was intentional and not just an accidental explosion from ammonium nitrate there that Hezbollah had put in. So there's just been one after the other. There was a color revolution that destroyed their banking system. There was a lot of things that have hurt them over and over, and they see what's happening with these 2 million Syrians, the same thing, just a repeat of an attack on their country.
Yeah, well, it is an attack on their country. Brigitte Gabriel of Act for America, I think, is the name of her organization. She's from Lebanon in the pre-Islamic majority days when Christianity was at 70%. And she talks about it frequently, why it's dangerous to continue to not support protecting the Christian population so that it can grow and thrive again, and help make Lebanon great again, to use President Trump's words. I mean, why don't we want that to be a model country again, with a Christian majority where you can go to the beach free and not worry about somebody coming and threatening to chop off your head?
Well, because somebody's agenda doesn't want that. I think that's the only thing I've come to. I don't know who that is, but somebody doesn't want that. And because that could happen. It could be made great again. It's an extremely beautiful country. I went up, they took me up into the mountains. It's called Tabriya, I think is the name of the memorial to the fighters that died in they have a memorial walk through the cedar forest. It's absolutely gorgeous with a lot of the names of the people who fought fighting the PLO or died fighting the PLO. And at the end of the walk, there's a monument to the 241 U.S. Marines that died at that same period. They're very pro-American. They're very pro-West. And I made the mistake. I called one of these Lebanese Christians. I said, "You don't look Arab," in my ignorance. He's like, "Man, we're not Arab. We're Phoenician. We're more European than anything else." And so I found that I've had my eyes opened. And so I just think more people, and this is why free media like what you're doing is so important, to get it out there, because you're not going to get this in the mainstream media.
Yeah, much like the Philistines that once occupied the area known as Gaza now. They're European. They're not Arab. So
yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we got to take another break. When we come back, I do want to talk a little bit about the Pope's trip to Turkey because that Council of Nicaea anniversary is important. I want to ask you a question on what you think the Pope's going to say. We'll be right back with Todd Wood. The war on Christians and Christianity, it's real. Sure is.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Domenica scorsa è stato compiuto un vile attentato terroristico contro la comunità greco-ortodossa nella chiesa di Mar Elias a Damasco. Affidiamo le vittime alla misericordia di Dio ed eleviamo le nostre preghiere per i feriti e i familiari. Ai cristiani del Medio Oriente dico: vi sono vicino. Tutta la Chiesa vi è vicina. Questo tragico avvenimento richiama la profonda fragilità che ancora segna la Siria dopo anni di conflitti e di instabilità. È quindi fondamentale che la comunità internazionale non distolga lo sguardo da questo Paese, ma continui a offrirgli sostegno attraverso gesti di solidarietà e con un rinnovato impegno per la pace e la riconciliazione.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. That was Pope Leo. Unfortunately, the English version of it did not make up that. That's what happens when you do live television, folks. There is an English version. He was expressing his solidarity with the Christians that had been annihilated in Syria after the civil war and the new government that we support now. We invited him to the White House, invited him to the UN, et cetera, et cetera. Former IQ guy, that's IQ, Islamic State in Iraq, that kind of person. It's unfortunate. But that was Pope Leo expressing his solidarity with the Christians that had been murdered and assassinated and massacred by Muslims in Syria after the Civil War. And he rightly said that, and we should be concerned about the wider war, even outside the Middle East. And my guest today is Todd Wood, the CEO of CDM Press, whose organization is global. It's not huge, but it's global, and it has the courage as an organization run by this man of courage to tell the truth, no matter how much it hurts. We've got to tell the truth, folks. Truth will set you free, as has been said many, many times, and that is a true statement. Todd, the Pope's going to Turkey to celebrate the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea. I hope, this is my heart of hearts as a military guy and a Christian, that he gets off the airplane and goes to a microphone and says something like, I'm calling on President Erdogan to reinstate the Sophia Hagia as the oldest Christian church instead of the Muslim mosque that he's turned it into. But he won't, will he?
I highly doubt it. I was just at the Hagia Sophia, incredibly beautiful. And you know what I noticed? And even my daughter I brought, she's 17, I was there with her. And we're looking, it's been turned into a mosque. It's a beautiful facility. But you go inside and the kind of gaudy stucco that they painted over all the Christian frescoes is falling off. And underneath, the gold glitter of the Christian frescoes and the face of Christ literally is peering through behind all the plaster that's falling off. It's quite stunning. And my daughter, who Learned a lot on that trip. Was just fascinated. And the other thing is, the parking lot is just a den of thieves. I mean, I went from Christian Armenia, where everybody's nice and trying to help you, and you go into Turkey, and the guy in the taxi is literally trying to rip me off within 2 minutes. And I'm like, I told my daughter, you see the difference. It's just a difference in culture. And I'm not downgrading Muslims. I'm just upgrading Christians, because I think we have something that has to be saved. And I saw that the parking lot around the Hagia Sophia is just filled with grifters and people trying to rip you off. And it's like the money changers in the temple. It's really interesting. But what a beautiful spot! I would encourage anybody to go there if you get a chance.
Christ would grab the whip.
Yeah,
I think.
Definitely.
Sounds
Definitely.
like. Yeah. Which is always an option. Everybody thinks with the WWJD bracelets, thinks that everything is all goofy, lovey-dovey, and all that in this world, but that's not true. That's why that's in the Bible, and Christ did that, is because sometimes you have to grab the whip and get a little aggressive with evil.
Yes.
What it is. And I think it's evil. I mean, it's one of the things that I'm concerned about with Turkey. And I hope the Pope does have a private conversation with Erdogan, is that he's trying to turn it into a theocracy, what was once a westernized state where you're free to worship, and free to speak without threat of government force being used against you, no longer exists. He's turning it into an Islamist theocracy, and he has wider aspirations than just Turkey. And even Syria, right?
Well, I think people need to see that it's a clash of the three Abrahamic religions. You've got Turkey in the Gulf states and Syria, their proxy state, that is spreading Sunni Islam as far as they can and gaining territory. You've got the Israelis very powerful in Jerusalem, and you've got the Christian remnant that is there. But it's really a epic battle again for that region. There's other people talking about a Christian state, a real one being built in the Middle East. I would support that effort. I've been trashed on other shows for even bringing that up. And
I'm sorry to cut in, but can y'all talk into the mic?
Yeah, sure. Can you not hear me?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Todd.
Well, so you have you mentioned Iraq and Syria and the destruction of the Christian population there, and that is very much a thing. They were wiped out in Iraq and Syria. And did you know that the Rwandan genocide, I never knew this, was majority against Christians? That the Tutsis, I think, that were killed, 700,000 of them or something, were all Christian?
I was not aware of that.
I didn't know. So this is something that's been going on over and over and over. And we have to call it out and stop it.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the Christian state. Wouldn't Lebanon be the likely choice since it naturally was that?
You would think so. And I had, I was on another competitor show and I brought that up and I got immediately squashed. Oh, the deep state would love that. They would build it up to a military, they'd make so much money. And I'm like, well, okay, well, at least we'd have a place where Christians could survive in the Middle East. I didn't see an argument. So I've spent time with these guys and they're like, look, we don't care if you're Protestant, Christian, Orthodox, whatever. You're Christian, you're on our team, and we want to build this community. And so that I found it really interesting. And I sat down I'll give you a story. I was in Beirut and I got to see some nuns who fled a convent in Syria where a lot of them were killed and they were in hiding, and the Mother Superior and one other was there. And I sat down with them about 2 hours, and the Mother Superior talked the whole time about what happened. And then the other nun was very quiet. And then at the end, we were talking about how all Christians should band together. And she looked at me and her face lit up like a rainbow, and it was really beautiful. And she said, "He's preparing the way, he's coming." And I thought, wow, that's serious right there, So
yeah, and the speech that I played at the beginning of this segment of Pope Leo, he is defending Orthodox Christians, not Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, which if you don't know the history, they split off from the Catholic Church, and that's significant. That the Pope is putting his bully pulpit behind that on the ground, and he's going there, and I think he should try to meet with the new leader of Syria too,
let's put pressure on these people, right?
Yeah.
Just say, don't do it anymore.
And I'm not an advocate of religious government, but but here's what's going on in other countries like Europe, where Western civilization is collapsing because of too many millions of legal and illegal refugees, illegal aliens that are. You can't make those folks, take Germany, for instance, or Ireland. You can't make them be Irish, and they're not going to buy into that. And that's what's happening in this country. Our system of assimilation is overwhelmed now because it takes time to do that because of these, I don't know how many millions of illegals have come in, but refugees, 70,000 plus refugees from Afghanistan. And look, the people that helped us in Afghanistan, God bless them, I love them, and I support bringing those folks that are like translators and the like and everything that want to be Americans to this country. But when you overwhelm the assimilation process, you end up with tribes controlling different areas. And even, let's take, for instance, the Minneapolis, Minnesota mayor's race. We dodged a bullet because we enabled the extreme leftists to get reelected, as opposed to the Somali Islamist that was running because of clan tribalism and clan opposition from other clans. Think about that. In today's America, you're having to navigate the Somali clan system in order to win an election in a major American city in the Minneapolis, Minnesota. And you have Mandami, who was just elected by people that just want to be able to raise a family and live on and have a good income in this country, but they see their government as opposing them. So they're going to vote for an Islamist Marxist who's an immigrant, albeit legal, refugee type from Uganda, an Islamist that is not going to and hasn't assimilated into the republic, the Republican form of government that is guaranteed at the national and state level in this country. And that is a problem. So eventually there will be people and groups of people that will start raising their voices about having a religious-based government in order to fight that if we don't take care of that business.
Well, we have to. I mean, supporting your own way of life and your own culture is not a bad thing. I mean, so just because you do that doesn't mean you want a religious government, as you said. You just want the ability to live the way you were taught and what you feel comfortable with. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And you mentioned Rwanda and those Christians that were massacred, genocide. And now we have, and this is why I'm confused. The president of the United States has told Nigeria, hey, we put you on a list now because Boko Haram is killing thousands and thousands of Christians. You see it every day. And I might even use military force, he alluded to put an end to this if you don't stop it in defense of Christians. But in Lebanon, you see nothing occurring, even though they're as persecuted or more in that country than they are in Nigeria. If the president's willing to put his voice and bully pulpit behind defending Christians in Nigeria, I would think that he would want to know about what's going on in Lebanon and Syria and Turkey, and put his voice behind protecting Christians there too.
You would think so, and I went out against Sebastian Gorka the other day because he went to Lebanon and met with the president and said, the U.S. will be behind you disarming Hezbollah in the south. I'm like, well, wait a minute, what does that mean? We'll be behind you. We're going to back you, I think was his word. Does that mean militarily? I mean, what does that mean? I mean, and do we want another war and American troops on the ground in Lebanon? I say no. Nobody's calling for that. So why did that happen? But in Nigeria, I've heard that what's happening to the Christians is not so carved out and special because it's happening to a lot of the different tribes. And I've heard that really what Nigeria is about is getting access to minerals on the ground. So I don't know. I hope their heart is in the right place, but exactly, we need some consistency here. If you're going to do it in Nigeria, then What about Armenia? And what about in Lebanon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the United States going in militarily like you on the ground everywhere. It generally leads to more bad things than good. We got to take our last break. There is a way to do it without the United States doing it. Eric Prince has got a good idea. We'll talk about it on the backside of this last break, and the Pope would be involved. We'll be right back with Todd Wood.
O Papa pode ter um exército novamente? Bom, foi o que propôs o fundador da empresa privada militar mais famosa do mundo, a Blackwater, hoje chamada de Academy. Ele acaba de propor que o Papa Leão XIV financie um exército privado para proteger os cristãos da Nigéria. Eu já posso ouvir os sons da trombeta de Balduino. Sim, Eric Prince, ex-militar americano, respondeu a uma publicação no X dizendo: por que o senhor não financia meus colegas para proteger os cristãos nigerianos dos muçulmanos que os estão massacrando? Veja só, gente, a Blackwater, chamada Academy.
You know, sometimes with live TV, things happen that are unexpected. That has an English translation to it, and the man is talking about Eric Prince proposing to the Pope that the Pope authorize funding for his company, which is a paramilitary company, to go into places like Nigeria and essentially recreate the Pope's army. And the individual goes on to talk about how there is precedent for this, and he relates it to the Knights Templar armies that were sent in during the Crusades, which is a whole other topic that I don't want to talk about. But my guest today is Todd Wood of CDM Press, and we're talking about the Pope's visit to the Middle East and Lebanon and Turkey and other places there, and the war on Christians around the world, especially in that hemisphere, in that area, and in Africa, and how Christians are dying in thousands and thousands and thousands unnecessarily because there's not enough capability there to defend them. And Todd, Eric's idea, I'm open to that suggestion. You know, why doesn't the Pope just hire him to go in and take care of business and protect these Christians in places like Nigeria?
Against Eric Prince, I think, however, Eric needs to remember that we have Friday the 13th for a reason, because they burned all the Knights Templar, hundreds of them at once. So, you know, he needs to keep that in mind. But anyway, I have no problem with that. I think it would be a good idea, you know, and even just to put a barrier between the different factions and let these people live in somewhat of peace.
Yeah, I mean, the Pope's a head of state, so he could fund a peacekeeping force and offer it up and say, "Hey, we're gonna put a peacekeeping force to protect our Christian population here. Your government's not able to do it.
They got the money. Why not?"
Yeah, and he probably could even generate a phone call from the boss, President Donald J. Trump, and saying, "Hey, this is a good idea. Let them in, or else, you know, I'm going to come for you."
The Pope could have an army again.
And,
that's what the founder of the world's most
famous... There's my English translation, Todd, that was supposed to be overlaid on that video.
Okay.
This happens, folks. It does.
It does on my TV.
Absolutely. How we deal with it is one thing, but yeah. So what do you think about the funding of this? I mean, does the Vatican have enough dollars to do this kind of stuff?
I think the Vatican has unlimited funds almost. They have a lot of money. They could do something like this if they really wanted to. And Africa is producing most of the really, devout priests that are. You go to any Catholic church in the U.S. now, one of them is likely either from Africa or Philippines or something, because we're not creating the priests here, or they've got problems with the white American priests here. I don't know, but I can tell you, Africa is a very, very devout Christian area, and a lot of it. And we've had representatives from Mary Care on, which is an organization that goes into Nigeria and other places and does microfinance with a lot of the Christian families, helping them, get their way of life back and to create a living wage. And so, I mean, just the bully pulpit, and then some security. And they called me, and she was like, "Hey, do you know anybody that in your circle that could go help us provide security in Nigeria?" I'm like, "Well, I do know some people, but that's a reach, and there's a lot of money to do that. Maybe Eric Prince could do that."
Yeah, I mean, Eric's. He's like at the cutting edge for military forces that are, I guess they're mercenary type things, but it's a company that provides a service, and he's got pretty good leadership skills from what I can tell. I think the president of the United States has confidence in him. And maybe we should start another company as competition. That maybe they could all be hired together if you need to build forces and build numbers and those kind of things. I'm just thinking out loud here, but I think it's a solid idea. I wish I'd thought of it. I hadn't seen that Prince had proposed this because maybe other heads of other churches could pool all their money together, and we could have a Christian protection force that could be inserted in to these places where they're killing thousands of people every week for no reason other than their religion.
That's a great idea. I haven't thought of it. And then the other thing is other countries. The Russians, for instance, are allegedly a Christian country. There's obviously competition on the ground for minerals and stuff like that. But why not work a deal? Have sectors that you patrol or whatever, and provide protection.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the Russians, as a matter of fact, and I forgot to do it in a previous segment, and their role in Syria. What do you see their role in Syria being as this plays out? I know the United States policy was intended to somewhat supplant them, but I don't think they've been completely isolated out of that country, have they?
Not completely, and they're coming back in, but they simply are too busy elsewhere. In my estimation, they just don't have the resources to really fight for a place down there right now, because they're obviously tied up in Ukraine. So I think that's their main focus, and that's another reason why they're not a threat to Western Europe. They don't have the force structure to even occupy and control Donbass at this point after 2 or 3 years. So my view, they're not a threat to Western Europe, but the Tusk in Poland and all of them, they found a sabotaged railway in Poland today. It's got to be the Russians. I mean, this false flag stuff is getting a little ridiculous. So I hope that we don't get dragged into a big conflict in Europe. That's still the main risk I see to the country, and Trump needs to end that right now, and he needs to end the persecution of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church by the Zelensky regime. That has to stop.
Exactly right. And I asked about the Russians because they had a big footprint in Syria, but we also worked with them while they were in Syria quite frequently when we're talking about forces on the ground, et cetera. Of course, we did have to attack some of their mercenaries and kill them because they were threatening our forces once. But we worked with them on air forces, deconflicting airspace, those kinds of issues. And I don't know if we shared any specific intelligence or not, but in general, I know we communicated together. And if what is going on in Eastern Europe wasn't going on, the Russians could have probably played a significant role in peacekeeping or monitoring of all these various various peace agreements that are going on. Not everywhere, but in places where they're accepted. Yeah, right.
Yeah, sure. No, I think so. They have a big footprint in Africa. It's not all a good footprint in our view, but they are there. So if there's Russian troops in an area, I mean, why not make the call? Hey, can you stop this? Just go in there and put a line of troops to keep the parties apart. Protect the Christian settlement.
All the more reason for the president to get this thing ended sooner rather than later, because that phone call won't get made as long as this fighting in Ukraine is going on for a couple of reasons. But number one is because it's not politically acceptable on our side of the ocean. But the other reason is, like you mentioned, is capability-wise, they're tied up and very tied up. And since we're talking about it, what do you see as the current situation on the ground? It seems to not be changing a whole lot. It's frontline, force on force, trench warfare-ish by modern 21st century standards, the drone on people issue, air attacks, and not a whole lot of movement that would break the logjam on either side of this, which I think that there is one. It's probably going to be Russian just because of the overwhelming amount of force on the ground they have. But what do you see as the immediate future over the next couple of months? Is there any hope that the president will be able to get these folks to the peace table, or is it going to continue like this?
I don't think, well, first of all, the Russians are taking territory. They just took Pokrovsk, which is a huge distribution center near Dnipro. And they are continuing to take territory in villages very, very slowly but steadily. The Ukrainians can't stop them. So we're continuing this, drone warfare back and forth on our strategy now seems to be to shut off their oil income, which will bring them to the negotiation table. But I keep telling people, you have to understand the Russians and just study a little history. And they're not going. This is their territory. They see it, and they're not going to back down. And until you get NATO fully involved, and even then, I don't think it would still be a disaster. So I just think we need to get out and let it become a neutral state. And Lavrov said this morning, we're not going to quit until our objectives are met. And so when they're not there yet, but what you do see is Zelensky, all the corruption stuff is starting to come out. I find that interesting. That is on purpose because somebody wants him gone. I don't know who it is, but that stuff was released on purpose. I mean, the dude has stolen billions of dollars, and his team stole billions. They're offshore. They have real estate all over the world. They could retire and live comfortably. Maybe they need to worry about a thief in the night coming to take them out, but they've stolen a lot. They're criminals. It's organized crime. They're destroying the church. We're not helping the people of Ukraine. It's gone from 42 to less than 25 million. It's a disaster. And I think that was the goal, was to depopulate the area for the minerals and the resources, the gas, the land, the farmland, all of that is wanted by somebody. So that's my take on it, that this will continue to be a grind and Russia will win. It's just a matter of time. And I'm not anti-Ukrainian. I had a Ukrainian refugee family in my house for 8 months. I was there during the invasion. I'm just saying you're not helping Ukraine by what you're doing now. You're hurting the people. So in the war.
Yeah, with that population reduction, we've only got about a minute and a half left, Todd. But with that population reduction in Ukraine, now those folks aren't all dead. They've left as refugees. I would hope that they would be able to go home once this is ended. And like you said, the sooner rather than later. And I'm not opposed to Ukrainians either. I think I would like them if I were able to go to the country and visit and those kind of things. But I also think that about Russia too, and I've never been able to visit either one of them. And I just want to see this ended as quickly as possible so that we can really rebalance Europe and get Europe focused on its collapsing civilization in the face of extremist and virulent Islamism. I'll give you the last 30 seconds.
Well, Europe is committing suicide on purpose. The new censorship act that just came out is tyrannical. I wrote about that. Why are we defending this regime? I see no reason to have troops in Europe if they're going to continue this path. Putting people in jail for Facebook posts, a monitoring center that will monitor everything you do, just like in China. It's not okay, and we need to stop supporting that garbage.
You're absolutely right, my friend. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it. Sorry about the technical difficulties, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
Yep. tomorrow is Training Tuesday. We've got Daniel Betts, who is running for Congress in Texas. It's the district where the flooding occurred. Obviously, there was some government breakdown issues there that need to be addressed. Should be an interesting conversation. I'm Rob Maness. I'll see you then.